Hello everyone, Jim from Ohio here, and today I want to talk with you about something important for your garden, something known as compost. Now, compost is simply all of the plants that you've grown in your garden. At the end of the year or at the end of the growing cycle, you collect all of the leftover waste that you don't intend to eat. You gather it together in one place, such as a compost bin, and it breaks down and it actually turns back into new soil. And the new soil that's created is full of all of the vitamins and minerals and enzymes and all of the good things that made the plant grow. It's all gathered together in the soil, and then you can take that new soil and supplement all of your new beds. There's Jenny throwing something into the compost bin as we speak. Now, this is a new compost bin. I just built it this weekend, and it's something that really is worth its weight in gold, black gold, because that's exactly what this old stuff turns into. Like I said, it turns into some of the finest soil. The only thing that really beats compost, if you ask me, is worm castings. And actually, if you have a really good compost bin, it will attract worms, and those worms will leave behind their castings, and those castings will further supplement or implement the compost that you create. Now, a compost bin doesn't have to be anything elaborate. You can see I simply built mine out of 2x6 lumber and 4x4, and mine is probably overbuilt. I wanted it to be heavy duty because I figure I'm only going to be able to garden for another 20 years, if that, and I don't want to have to make another one, so I built this one to last about 20 years. And if you don't want to build a compost bin, you can create just a compost pile. Now, I chose to go with a bin, and I did put chicken wire around it, and the chicken wire isn't really to keep anything out. It's more or less to hold everything in. I want to make sure that when we have storms or strong winds, this stuff doesn't blow all over our yard or the neighbor's yard. Now, if you wanted to enclose it with, instead of chicken wire, if you want to spend a little bit more, you can go with hardware cloth screening, and that'll probably keep everything except for mice and bugs out of it. But I don't mind if little critters or creatures like this guy right here get in there. But he's just going to eat some of the bugs or worms or whatever. But he's going to do his stuff, pee and poop and whatever behind it, which is then in turn going to probably further supplement the final material for this. Now, you do want to make sure that when you do make either a compost pile or a compost bin, that you do keep it close to your garden, but you want it to be a good distance from your house. Now, you can see my garden is right here, and you want it close to the garden so that it's convenient. We can take all of the leftover waste and droppings right out of our beds and put them right into the compost pile. We don't have to carry them a far distance. You want it far enough from your house. You see our house is way over there. The reason you want to do that is because this is material that's breaking down. So this stuff is going to smell bad over time, and we want to make sure we don't get this smell where when we're enjoying a cookout or something on the deck, we don't want to be smelling rotting compost. The other reason you want it far from your home is, as I mentioned, this is food scrap. Now, you don't want to put any meat in here, but those food scrap will attract critters like you can have visitors like possums or raccoons or toads, but you could get mice or even rats, and you don't want those anywhere near your house where they may infiltrate and join you one evening when you're trying to relax. So keep it far enough away. Now, one of the things things that I did when I built this. I made it, and if you do either a pile or a bin, you want to make sure that it's large enough so that you can separate things. I have seen some really elaborate compost bins that implement a 2 or 3 bin approach where they'll have separate chambers altogether. But you know, I found that that's a lot of work, and most people that build something like that don't actually use it the way it's intended. Now, what that's intended for is you put all your fresh scraps in one bin, and as those fresh scraps break down, you move them over to a second bin. And then you continue to put your fresh scraps in the first bin. When those things are broken down a little bit more, then you move them over to a third bin. Now, moving them will help you turn the material over, and the more you turn it over, the quicker you're going to create compost. Now, another thing I've seen with those 3 bin systems that you could do is just start with bin 1 and leave it and let it do its thing and break down, and then move to bin 2, start putting all your fresh stuff in bin 2, and then bin 3, and so on. But you do have to occasionally turn this stuff over. So like I said, I found that most people don't go through all of that work. They tend to just let the stuff sit, which is what I intend on doing. I've had good luck with it breaking down that way, but I did make sure that I built it wide enough and large enough for our garden. Now, I do have room. I can come in here and move this stuff from one side to the other to access the stuff on the bottom, which is the main reason you want it to be a good width. This one is 8 foot wide, or 4 foot wide, 8 foot long. And I think that that'll be more than sufficient for the size of our garden. How elaborate you get is really up to you. How much you spend is really up to you. Just keep in mind those items that make it more convenient for use. Now, one thing that I did to make sure that it is convenient to use is you need to access the compost either for moving it around or turning it over, or just when you go to get that already prepared and made ready to use compost out to put into your garden beds. You want to make sure you can get in there. So what I did, you'll notice that the front wall on this bed is shorter than the back wall, and that's because this whole front piece can lift right out of there. I created slots on both sides of the bed, and so this is not attached. This is actually just sitting in place, and the whole thing will lift and slide right up the guides on both sides. And with that, I can come right in here with a shovel and do whatever I need to do. Now, I did put this weed fabric underneath it just to keep the weeds and grass from growing up underneath. Whether you do that or not is totally up to you. I chose to do it just so that I'm not always having to trim or come at this thing with a weed eater. But over time, as this stuff breaks down, you will occasionally, even if you put the weed fabric down, the scraps that you put in there a lot of times will have seeds. You see we've got cucumbers right here, and that's got seeds in those. Right over there, there's some peppers that had some blossom end rot, but those seeds will in time start growing, and they'll grow right up because they like this soil too. So just be prepared to maintain and manage this once you have it in place. I think that's about all I've got to say about that, other than one other thing that this stuff is awesome for. Occasionally you'll see me make a video with compost tea. Now, compost tea is when you take some of the prepared, the ready-to-use compost. You make a tea bag by putting that into a paint strainer bag, and then you suspend that in water, and then you aerate and circulate the water. What it does is it takes all of the good bacteria from this compost, and it creates one of the best things that you can use for your garden to stay natural and organic. Compost tea has beneficial bacteria that will keep pests away, and it'll help your plants to grow ultra fast. It's some of the best homemade fertilizer that you can make. So all from compost. So don't throw this stuff away. Keep it, use it, put it back on your garden, and you'll always have a healthy and happy garden. Well, this is Jim with Jim Janney, Ohio. I hope you've learned something today about compost and compost bins. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye now.